Yo guys, it's Vin, and today I'm going to be giving you 7 tips to help you become a master blaster. Now, this video is pretty advanced, and it won't help you at all unless you at least know the very basics of blasters, so there's going to be some videos on screen and in the description that I think are really good for helping you to learn the basics. And we're actually going to start the video by analyzing some of Boomie's gameplay, who in my opinion is one of the greatest blasters players in the history of Brawlhalla. So yeah, thank you guys so much for waiting so patiently, and let's just get watching those clips. I hope you enjoy. Bye.
I'm surprised he left. I tried to unsig. Going for a sig or something. That's not unlucky, it's just crazy that it happened. Okay. I need like one hit and then deal recovery. Maybe I could have gone for dash jump recovery there. Okay. That move is so safe, what the hell? Okay, dodge down away. Oh wow, I don't even know what happened. Wow, that hit me. Interesting. He's dead, I think, yeah.
Alright guys, blaster time baby, let's go. The reason you want to constantly be poking your opponent with sidelight is just super safe. Look how far away I can poke my opponent from, especially because of the fact that blasters, you want to be staying far away anyway. If you're outside of your opponent's attacking distance, how are they going to punish you if you're just throwing away sidelights like this? You shouldn't spam it because that just becomes predictable. But if you're constantly trying to poke them like this, it keeps your opponent in this range where you want them to be. You don't want them to be on top of you when you're playing blasters. If they do try to punish you when you throw out these sidelights, just Nlight right after. Let's say he's a sword player and he tries to run at me with sword sidelight. I Nlight him and get a big punish. Let's say he's a scythe player and he tries to dash jump dare to punish my sidelight. I can just jump dare, or in my opinion, which is the best option, is to just run away and reset to neutral, because Brawlhalla is a game about punishing, not attacking. So whenever you can disengage and reset to neutral, you probably should, because it's a lot less risky than missing another move and now they're actually going to get another punish on you because you missed your wake up. Now, let me get into one of my main points of sidelight. Although I said sidelight is super safe, it doesn't mean that the reward is low. In fact, the reward for hitting a sidelight is actually extremely high, because you can send your opponent into this really weird mind game where they can either dodge and get red really easily, or they don't dodge and get sent into an edge guard or juggle scenario. If you hit a sidelight, both of your options afterwards are unjumpable. Sidelight Sair is 2 frames, and sidelight reverse Nair is only 1 frame on 6 decks or higher, and 5 decks or lower, it's 2 frames. Since both of these flowcharts are unjumpable, it puts immense pressure on them to dodge, because if they don't dodge, they're going to be getting hit with this. If they get hit with a sidelight Sair, let's say they're on higher health, they get sent off stage, and now you're in an edge guard scenario. If you do a sidelight into a reverse Nair, you put them in a juggle scenario, which puts them under immense pressure to actually get back to the stage. Back to my original point. If they did dodge, you're actually in a better position than if they didn't dodge. Because sidelight only props them a few feet off the ground, it's actually really easy to just react off this move. I don't need to know that this Bodvar dodges in every single time to be able to read him off sidelight. I can do sidelight, just simply react to him, and then get some crazy damage. And all of this stems from the fact that I throw out this really stupid long-range poke that's basically unpunishable as long as I'm in the right distance. Now this leads me to my second tip, which is using Sair a lot. Now, Sair is literally just a better sidelight in my opinion. Okay, well, not necessarily, because they both have their own uses, but think about it. Sair is an aerial move, which means that you can do rising Sairs, you can do falling Sairs, and you can drift around with this. You can just zoom across the map with this move. It's actually crazy. Instead of sidelight, you can do falling Sair, and you can pretty much alter these throughout the game to put so much pressure on your opponent to stay away from you. If you do hit one of these falling Sairs, it's just like sidelight in the fact that you can get so much damage off of, like, that's like 60 damage to start the match. That's actually insane. Although it's slightly harder to read off of Sair, it doesn't really matter anyway because you're gonna be put in such a good position because, again, Sidelight doesn't really knock them very far back, but Sair does. So potentially if they're on yellow to orange, you're gonna be able to put them in a further edgeguard situation and, again, put more pressure. As long as you can keep applying pressure on your opponent, you're gonna be winning a lot of neutral engagements. Now let me move on to a more aggressive use of Sair besides falling Sair. If you're constantly poking your opponent with sidelight, your opponent is probably going to catch on to the fact that, oh, whenever this player stands here, I'm going to get sidelighted. This is when I jump and then try to punish that missed sidelight, like that. This is where you can read that and actually push using a dash jump Sair. If you saw in the Boomie clip, Boomie literally chased the guy all the way out here, then did a Sair like that, and killed him and then won the match. You can literally chase people with jump Sairs just like you can with sidelights. You can really aggress people with both sidelight and Sair depending on whether you know they're gonna jump or not. If they're grounded, you run at them with sidelight. If you know they're gonna jump, you can dash jump Sair into an Nlight, into a reverse Nair, into whatever you want. You can just hound people down with sidelights and dash jump Sairs. Now, those are some pretty aggressive uses of Sair. Let me move on to some more defensive ones. If you're just playing neutral like this, you can really keep people at bay with sidelight. However, you can also do the same thing with falling Sair. Let's say your opponent is really wanting to attack you, but you want them to stay away, like you should. You are a Blasters player after all. You can keep them away with Blaster Sidelight, or you can also hop around a little bit, do these little short hops, and then falling Sair. Both of these moves put so much pressure on your opponent to stay away that they probably will, because if they don't stay away, they're going to be hit with something like this. Another really good defensive use of Sair is actually going like this. Dash jump and reverse Sairing when someone's chasing you. Let's say my opponent is playing Katars, Sword, Orb, or Gauntlets, and they're really heavily pushing me. I can just run away from them and reset to neutral, covering myself with a falling Sair. If you know my opponent is actually jumping at me, I can just go like this and drift away from them, which is actually crazy. Now, one more thing about using Sair is that since the hitbox is so disjointed, you can really use this on edge guarding. Like I said before, Boomie tapped some guy all the way out here with a Sair and then killed him and won the match with it. But you can also use it, instead of chasing them off stage, you can just hang out on the wall and trace their movement as they're coming back to stage, right? And when they come close, Sair. This is really safe because the hitbox is super far away from your character model, so they really can't punish you, especially because of the fact that they are the one in disadvantage state. They're the ones burning their options trying to get back to stage. They need to touch the wall, they need to come to stage, but instead, you're there guarding it. And because you have such a long-range disjointed Sair hitbox, you can do this from super far away, and they can't do anything about it. If they try to punish you, they're probably just gonna SD. Alright guys, my third tip is to spam Nair. And when I say spam Nair, I seriously mean spam Nair in the most literal sense possible. In my opinion, the most valuable one is Nair juggling in early health. If you go for D-Light Sidelight instead of the more damage optimal D-Light Dare, it allows you to go for a reverse Nair follow-up for only one frame. And personally, I always go for this. Your opponent's mentality when they're getting hit by multiple Nairs is they want to drop downwards, and because of this, I can adapt and actually get reads off of the Nair juggles. For example, after maybe the first Nair, I see that they're gonna dodge down, and I prepare myself for a jump dare instead. Another one that you can do is you're doing Nairs and then you do jump Sair to catch them trying to fast fall off the side. Even if you're not getting these crazy reads, you're probably not going to be punished in the first place for Nair juggling. Your opponent is probably going to have to burn a dodge to escape the juggle, and they're probably not going to be trying to punish you at the same time. If they're getting hit with this really extended Nair juggle, their first reaction is, like I said, to try and fast fall and touch the ground. Either way, the worst thing that can possibly happen is you lose your Nair juggle and you reset back to neutral, which is kind of what you want to do anyway. Another really good place to spam Nair is on the edge. I'm sure you've seen many Blasters player do this before. Spamming Nair on the edge is perfectly safe. This is essentially a free anti-edge guard, and if you saw in the Boomie clips against the Vector player, his first reaction as he was coming back to stage was to touch the wall with a jump and at the same time Nair. And although he wasn't able to cancel out the Vector's ground pound because the Vector went around, the Vector still had to respect the fact that Nair was a free anti-edge guard, so he couldn't just ground pound him here. He had to go all the way out here to ground pound him rather than right above him. And another interesting thing about Nair is that the wall slip mechanic in this game says that if you do 15 wall actions, you get 3 exclamation points above your head and then you fall to your death. However, getting a hit allows you to reset reset that counter. So if you want to stall a game for whatever reason, in my opinion, the best reason to stall a game is to tilt your opponent, or at least when you're losing. If you just stand on the wall and keep spamming Nair, and your opponent gets impatient, you hit them with this backwards blast of Nair, reset your wall slip counter, and now you can just keep stalling. And the thing is, even if you get really close to the 3 exclamation points and your opponent is not pushing you, you can literally use Sair like this to get back. This is extremely safe. Now, one final thing I have to say about Nair is X-pivoting. In my opinion, the best use for an X-pivot is as a mix-up on regular Nair, because if you're doing Nair like this, you're kind of stuck in place, and you kind of just fall to the ground. The earliest you can wake up is here, which, I mean, that is a pretty fast wake up, but if your opponent is all the way up here and you miss this Nair, they're just going to come here, and your opponent's probably going to be able to punish this regular dash jump Nair. However, if you do a X-pivot Nair, you get thrown a little bit backwards, and since you're only going to be using any type of Nair when your opponent is kind of at this 45-degree angle anyway, since you get thrown backwards, you're probably not going to get punished if you miss this in the first place. Another really good situation in which you can use X-pivot Nairs is on maps like Great Hall and the Ben 10 map, where the platform is slightly on the stage and slightly off the stage, because if someone is standing on this platform, probably the most optimal option is to go for a jump Sair. However, let's say you want to mix it up a bit because you've been doing jump Sair the whole match. If you do a regular dash jump Nair, you're gonna throw yourself off the stage. There's no guarantee that this will really hit them because the first shot comes out further back and the second shot is the one that's further out. However, if you do a dash jump like this, the first shot is the one that's coming out furthest. You're also returning yourself back to the stage, so if you do miss this, it doesn't really matter because you're still maintaining stage control. If you miss this, your opponent is free to walk back on the stage and now you're in an edge guard position. Furthermore, doing an X pivot Nair allows you to do a chase dodge back into stage if you do hit it, so you can reset back to neutral extremely quickly if you hit this. Alright guys, my fourth tip is to use Nlight less. Now, to clarify, I'm not saying that you should never be using Nlight, because it is quite a valuable move in the Blaster's kit for quite a few reasons that we're going to go over very quickly. This move has near instant startup. This comes out basically instantly, and also look at the 2 giant hitboxes that come out. This is its second main strength, is that these 2 huge hitboxes come out right in front of you insanely quickly, and they can basically stuff any approach. Blaster Nlight is insanely good for defensive play. Now, the first one I've already talked a lot about, which is waking up. Although waking up isn't always the best option, in fact, it's probably one of the less good options that you can go for in a game. But if you know your opponent is going to run at you, literally anything on blasters into Nlight is really good for stuffing their approach. As an alternative to waking up, you can also just use Nlight on its own to be able to stuff people's approaches. Let's say this Bodvar does a sword sidelight at me, I can literally just stand here in Nlight and be able to stop him because, again, these 2 hitboxes are huge and they have near instant startup. Another really good option for Blaster Nlight is catching bad landings. Let's say your opponent is falling from the air and they still have a jump left. A lot of times you can't catch them with a D-light because it hits super low. You can catch them with a jump dare, however, they need to be right on top of you, and if you think about it, if someone's approaching you from the air, they're probably not going to land right on top of you. They're going to land a little bit in front of you. This is where you can do Nlight to be able to catch that. Another really good use for Blaster Nlight is being able to catch out of D-light dare with a GC. Now, a lot of people know that at around white health, you can do D-light dare into GC D-light Sair for only 2 frames, and you get the D-light Sair true, obviously. However, if you do 30 damage, that becomes 12 frames because the D-light dare pushes them slightly higher off the ground and you don't get caught by the D-light as quickly. Instead, you can do a GC Nlight for only 1 frame and then follow up into a Nair juggle for 1 frame if you're 6 decks or higher. Another really good option is pressuring on the edge. Now, you shouldn't really be going for this all the time, but it is an option to be able to stall your opponent on the edge. If you spam all your options like D-light, Nlight, and sidelight at the same time and just alternate through them, your opponent will be completely stuck on the edge if they don't have your timing, as long as, you know, you're mixing these up efficiently, and which opens you up to a lot of things. You can go down with a dare, you can go for a ground pound, or you can just stay up here and wait for them to come up and then maybe Sair them off the edge and go into the Sair stuff we talked about earlier. The final main use, in my opinion, for Blaster Nlight is actually in 2v2. Now, I know Blasters really isn't the best weapon in 2v2. However, Blaster Nlight actually sets up your opponent in such an easy position to combo into other weapons moves like Spear Delight, or literally Sair on any other weapon, especially Hammer and Axe, because Blaster Nlight keeps them in place for such a long time and props them up super high. If you're still new to 2v2 and you and your partner are still getting a feel for each other and learning how to react off each other's moves, Blaster Nlight is super good because it gives your partner ample time to be able to react to you. However, if you try to use this move more aggressively, like trying to push with it instead of trying to cover yourself with it, more often than not, you'll run into a lot of problems. I mean, for one, there is no true combo starter out of Blaster Nlight, and I know you can say that, oh, Blaster Sidelight doesn't have a true combo either, but the difference between Blaster Sidelight and Nlight is that Sidelight is super safe, whereas Nlight keeps you in place for a super long time, and also because Blaster Sidelight props them only a few feet off the ground, so you can really easily react to your opponent's dodge. Again, we already talked about this, but Blaster Nlight, it puts them a little bit higher up. If your opponent is dodging any direction outwards and you're trying to react to them, you have so much more distance to be able to try and chase them. It's a different story if they're dodging inwards. If they're dodging inwards, it's really easy to react to them because of the fact that it's a 50-50 whether they dodge inwards or outwards. In like that general direction, it can be very difficult to react to them. And because of everything I just said, it doesn't really excel in anything that your other moves don't. I mean, for example, Sidelight, you already know about this. It's super safe, sets up into some really easily reactable punishes. Sair, you can drift around with it. You can Rising Sair, Falling Sair, do whatever you want with it. Delight is your main true combo starter, and it literally covers the same area as Nlight, except slightly lower. And although it does cover slightly lower, it allows you to GC it really easily. You can also do GC Delight into Chase Dodge Reverse Nair as another true combo besides Sair. Jump Dare covers stacked just like Delight and is pretty much the same area as Nlight also. If I were to Jump Dare, yep, that connects. And also you can set up into some really easy low frame strings like that. That's only 2 frames. And I know if you put your opponent higher, maybe 150, you can do a Chase Dodge up. Yep, Chase Dodge diagonally up Sair for a true combo, which this is really consistent. Now that I've talked about why Nlight is and isn't good, where exactly should you not use Nlight? I see a lot of people try to dash Nlight to punish when their opponent whiffs because of the low startup frames, and although this really isn't the worst option in the world, like, I mean, if this Bodvar were to whiff, I'm pretty much guaranteed to dash Nlight because 1, low startup frames, and also the hitbox comes out slightly above Delight, so if this Bodvar were to jump, he'd still probably get caught by the Nlight if I'm quick enough. However, dash Nlighting really isn't the most optimal thing you could possibly do. I mean, for example, if they're far away, you can dash Sidelight them. If you're this far away, there's no reason to dash Nlight when you can literally just Sidelight. If you're doing these little short hops, again, you can just do a Falling Sair. Another thing you can do to punish your opponent when they're really far away from you is you can actually do a dash Delight as long as you're going to be catching them with the first or second shot. Because if you're around here and you're catching them with the third shot, this is really not optimal. They're just going to walk out of it or jump out of it because, again, the hitbox is super low. But the better use for Delight is actually when they whiff right in front of you. I know everyone pretty much knows that Delight is really good for catching stacked. However, I still see so many people Nlighting on reaction. I mean, if they're whiffing, there's no reason you shouldn't do a Delight because, I mean, it leads into your main kill combo. And also you can GC it for some really easy damage. And probably one of the more popular options is actually Jump Daring. I know every Blasters players on the earth knows how to Jump Dare. And I mean, there is a reason why people Jump Dare when they're right in front of you. In my opinion, doing Delight is still better. However, if you feel like you're endangered by their move, just Jump Dare because 1, this puts you out of harm's way. Another thing is that you can actually jump before you hit the ground again. So even if you whiff this and your opponent is coming out of their recovery frames to punish you, you could probably just jump out of it. But again, if they whiff right in front of you, you should probably Delight. It's way more rewarding than Dare. Just know that Dare is a really good option that's super safe. Now here's a small extra note about using Nlight. A lot of people know that Nlight is super good for wake-ups. I mean, yeah, I've talked the whole video praising Nlight as like one of your best wake-up options. However, there is no reason to be Nlighting after every single whiffed move, especially when your opponent is halfway across the map. Let's say this Bodvar has Sword. How is he going to punish me? I mean, yeah, he could do a dash Sidelight. However, by the time my Delight is over, I'm free to just run away from him. Even if he did try to punish me from this distance, he'd be pretty dumb. At higher ranks, no one in their right mind would try to punish you from halfway across the stage. And I mean, sure, if they run at you like an absolute maniac, I know in Silver and and gold, this type of wake up works a lot. However, as you move more towards platinum and diamond, people aren't going to fall for this type of stuff. There really isn't a reason to be shooting at the air for 5 seconds other than to tilt your opponent, which I mean, yeah, tilting your opponent is a really big part of Brawlhalla. However, if we're just talking about pure game mechanic, shooting at the air for 5 seconds does literally nothing for you. I mean, it's probably better to just reset to neutral and rely on your falling Sairs and sidelights like you have been doing the whole game. Now my 5th tip is to dash spot dodge a lot. I've gone this whole video without really mentioning Nlight, which of course is your main true combo starter. And like Nlight, this move is better suited for defensive play rather than offensive play, because 1, you're locked in place for a really long time, and it's actually even longer than Nlight. Nlight is your main true combo starter, so it is more worth it than using an Nlight. Also, the Nlight shots come out one at a time, so if your opponent has a super fast reaction time, they can just walk out of it, and also because the shots hit super low, it's really easy to jump out of this. And I'm not going to be going over how to bait people with blasters and pretty much with any weapon so you can take advantage of these Nlight-esque moves, because I feel like that's something more efficiently learned in-game, and it would probably take a whole video of its own to explain. Instead, I'm going to go over a technique that a lot of pros, especially Sandstorm, use to aggress with moves like Blaster's Nlight. It's called dash spot dodging. It's dash, let go of your movement keys, and then quickly spot dodge. Essentially, you get a grounded spot dodge with momentum, which allows you to face through your opponent's attacks. And since you're on the ground by the time you do this spot dodge, you get the grounded dodge timer, which is only 1 second, meaning that after 1 second, I'll be able to dodge again. Now, in my experience, the best way to use this is just as you would expect. Literally, when you're in neutral and you feel like you're in distance to be able to push them, you can just dash spot dodge, phase right behind them, and then Nlight recovery. I mean, that's if they're on red, but you get the point. Now, the most optimal situation in which to use a dash spot dodge is when you know your opponent is the type that wants to hit you at every single chance they can get. Let's say this Bodvar is playing sword, and he's trying to Nlight me when I get in this distance. Like, let's say I'm standing right here, he's gonna Nlight me. However, I can bait that and be able to phase right through him and get an easy punish. And now, not everyone is going to be spamming sword Nlight the moment you fall into their distance. I mean, take for example passive players, people who are more conservative with their moves. A lot of times they actually spot dodge the moment you run up to them. Let's say I do a dash spot dodge. Instead of trying to attack me, they actually spot dodge because they anticipate me to attack them. In this case, it's kind of awkward because you both come out of recovery frames at the same time, so neither of you are in advantage state, and this Bodvar has equal chance to hit me as I have to hit him. This is where I can simply do a jump dare. Pretty much jump daring is probably your safest option. We saw in the Boomie clip, the moment he did a dash spot dodge, he was way out of distance and the Ulgrim came up to try and punish his dash spot dodge, and instead, Boomie just jump dared to cover the Ulgrim's whiffed punish. Now, this is a great option for approaching because it essentially allows you to phase through any immediate attempts to hit you, and even if you do miss this, you get your dodge back in 1 second anyway, since you're on the ground, so it is pretty safe. However, you shouldn't spam it because sooner or later, your opponent will adapt. And if you're attempting to dash spot dodge from too far away, your opponent will simply just get a larger punish on you now that you've wasted your dodge. Now, if your opponent is adapting to this, my advice to you is pretty simple. I would just say to stop dash spot dodging, because in reality, you should mainly be using your falling Sairs and sidelights to aggress anyway, and dash spot dodging shouldn't be your main option. It really should just be an extra tool to catch your opponent off guard. Alright guys, my 6th tip is to use recovery more. Now, there isn't really too much to talk about here, so I'm going to be pretty brief with it. Everybody knows the fabled Nlight recovery combo on blasters. It's extremely good, it kills extremely early off the top of the map, it's true out of a GC and on the ground, so making it really good at killing on maps with small ceilings like Brawlhaven and Small Enigma. However, a lot of times you find yourself struggling to catch raw Nlights in matches, especially if you're in Platinum or Diamond, or if your opponent is just really good at avoiding your Nlights. Now, if you find yourself struggling to catch raw Nlights in matches, a lot of times you're going to have to rely on Sairs to kill, which I mean isn't the worst thing around, because I mean Sair is a very safe move. However, it's really not the most damage optimal, and it doesn't kill very early. Now here is when I would suggest to mix in pickup recovery. Now, pickup recovery is when you just fast fall on your opponent and then do a recovery, just like this. It doesn't kill as early as regular Nlight recovery, however, it does kill fairly early, and it's pretty unexpected. And although this really isn't the hardest input in the world, I mean, yeah, you just hug them and do a recovery, it is fairly difficult to apply in a real match, so let me show you a scenario that I really like to use pickup recovery. If you send someone off stage, especially with a Sair, your first option should really just be to keep continuing to pressure them with Sairs off stage. However, this isn't the most consistent because, I mean, yeah, if you're doing this the whole match, your opponent will be able to avoid them, especially if they're saving their dodge. A lot of times when your opponent is burning options, especially if they've wasted their dodge, their first reaction is they want to be able to touch this stage as soon as possible. So if you miss your Sair edgeguard, just simply do a pickup recovery right before you land, because a lot of times your opponent will land here and they'll try to stop to try and punish you back. So if you can do a pickup recovery here, you cover this whole vertical plane and you do a ton of damage and will possibly kill them if they're on red. Now, of course, there's a lot more ways to use pickup recovery, but that's just one of the ways that I find is most consistent in real matches. Now, my next recovery tip is probably something a lot of you know, which is using exhausted recoveries to cover lateral distances. Watch this. If you get sent off stage and you use your dodge immediately, check this out. And then I can dodge again. I can use a dodge, 3 exhausted recoveries, and then another dodge, which is basically the whole map. This gives you a very cannon, gauntlets, or lance-esque recovery option in which you can cover so much horizontal distance, meaning that as long as you're sent above the stage, you can mix in these exhausted recoveries and cover a lot of horizontal distance. And yeah, there really isn't too much else to say about it, but my only suggestion is don't use this every single time you're above the stage, off stage. If you just spam exhausted recoveries like this, by the end of the match, your opponent is just going to be able to punish you, especially if they have those really wide anti-airs like spear recovery or hammer nair. Alright guys, my final tip about Blaster's recovery is something that's more personal preference than anything, but that's actually to use Nlight recovery to build damage in orange. I know a lot of people say it's more optimal to do Nlight Sair to send them into an edgeguard position, which I agree, it really is more optimal to send them off stage. Edgeguarding is really advantageous for you, especially if you train it super hard. You really shouldn't be giving up any edgeguards in the ideal scenario. However, a lot of times I just like to Nlight recovery and orange because a lot of people don't know that Blaster's recovery does like 22 damage, 22.6 damage, and Blaster's Nlight does 12.3 damage, so that's 35 damage combo that you can do by Nlight recovery. To put it into perspective, Nlight Sair is a 27 to 28 damage combo, so you're actually going to be doing like 6 more damage, and a lot of people think that you can't actually follow up out of Nlight recovery. However, as you saw in the Boomie clip with the Ulgrim, he did Nlight recovery even though he knew it wouldn't kill, and he instinctively chase dodged up and chased him with Nairs, which is really strong because a lot of times if you're catching your opponent off guard, you can push your opponent off the top of the screen with Nairs, which is not only extremely funny but also extremely tilting for your opponent. So you can just completely break your opponent's mental by chasing them with Nairs after recovery. Alright guys, my 7th and final tip of the video is probably the simplest one, which is to take advantage of your Blaster's signatures. Now in my opinion, one of Blaster's main weak points is its inability to combat floaty players. Now you can fight floaty players by Nair juggling and doing jump Sairs like I said before, however it doesn't have a grounded anti-air, meaning that none of Nlight, Sidelight, or Nlight are able to strictly hit aerial. This is where 45-degree angle signatures like Diana and Zig are extremely effective because they can cover aerial floaty players from the ground. Another reason why 45-degree angle signatures are super good is because they often combo really well out of Nlight. For example, Nlight Nsig is extremely good on Diana. I'm sure you saw in the Boomie clips, Boomie was basically spamming Nlight Nsig whenever he got the chance, and he even ended the game on the Ulgrim by just doing a raw Nsig to cover him from the ground. And it's not just Diana, pretty much any other Blaster's character with a 45-degree angle signature is so much more dangerous when using Nlight because it just makes it so much easier to read with them. Some other good 45-degree angle Blaster signatures are Lucine Nsig, which actually hits stacked and does 28 damage, which is extremely good. Lord Vrax Nsig, which has 1,000,000 active frames and actually does 31 damage, which is, that is insane. It also catches grounded, as you can see, and I'm pretty sure it can string out of Nlight if they don't have a dodge, which is absolutely insane. Alright guys, that's the end of the video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I really hope you enjoyed. I spent a lot of time making this guide. The total script was like 15 pages, and it took me over a week's worth of effort, so I would greatly appreciate it if you shared around with your friends, and told me what I need to improve on, told me what I did good in the comments section down below so I can make some even better content for you guys in the future. And yeah, I just want to say that there is another guide in the works. It's kind of like a movement guide. I'm not going to disclose too much about it because not much of the script is written yet. But anyway, see you guys next week. Bye.